Hey, this is Brock from Eagle Crest Studios, and today I'm going to be showing you how to create a watertight epoxy molding so you don't lose that precious epoxy that's so expensive. Let's get started. So the first thing we're going to do here is use Tyvek tape to paste the bottom of a board. So what I used here is just plywood that we had laying around, and this is a good sturdy 1-inch thick plywood. So the reason why I use Tyvek tape compared to anything else is because this is actually what they use to wrap buildings with to make it waterproof. So this one will prevent any stickiness from going on with the epoxy, as well as making sure any leakage doesn't come out. Now next, for my base, I'm building a square here. So what I have to actually do is put Tyvek tape on the sides of my board as well. Next part here is we're using the caulking. So I use the Bath and Body Works one. I'm just kidding, it's not actually Bath and Body Works, but a bathroom one. So what this is doing is it's going to be waterproof, and it'll actually help seal and everything that we end up putting it on. So the next part is here, you actually have to put it on the bottom of the pieces that you do not want to move. So in this case, I'm making a chessboard. I'm actually putting a little dab of caulking on each of one of these pieces and sticking it down. So when this dries, it's actually going to hold these pieces in place to make sure, one, they don't move, but two, also so epoxy doesn't get underneath them and lift the pieces, as well as also waste epoxy, because there's no sense in having epoxy underneath the wood. Now right here, the next part is I'm putting the epoxy, or excuse me, not the epoxy, the caulking on the bottom of the side pieces. So as I already said, I'm putting Tyvek tape on the sides, then I'm putting caulking on the bottom, as well as on the inside of these boards and the outside as well. So because I have it on the inside, the outside, and underneath, this is going to create a great seal when it comes to putting the epoxy in there. Nothing should be leaking out. So this next part here is just to show you how it works. So I have this green epoxy mixed up right now, and I'm going to be pouring it into each of the holes. So it's going to spread between hole to hole, as you can see here, because there's like this chessboard. Each piece should have a little bit of a gap in there. And this is so it spreads out evenly throughout the board. But you'll see in the next picture as well is that none of the epoxy actually escapes from the outside of the board. So the cast is exactly what I needed. I wanted to move inside, but I don't want it to flow outside of the 4 squares we have here. So this is about 12 hours later, and you can see that nothing is escaping, but it's evenly distributing throughout the board, which is perfect. This is exactly what we wanted. No leaks, no issues, and we're saving a bunch of money. Now the other way to do this, if you're just pouring a centerpiece of a project, is to just use a similar process. We're using Tyvek tape and putting it on the bottom, but instead of building a cast around the project, what you're going to be doing is just using the caulking and putting it directly on your project piece. So this was an epoxy end table I did a few months ago, and because I was just filling the center, I didn't really need to build a whole casting. What I did was still use that same epoxy that I used before and the same caulking as well, but I just put it underneath on the bottom of the actual piece. So you'll see here I'm doing 2 layers, which some people may say is overkill, but the fact is that caulking is really inexpensive compared to epoxy. Epoxy is almost 10 times as much as the caulking. So if you're gonna spend money on something, make sure you spend a little bit more money on caulking, because it's gonna save you a lot of money in the end comparing to losing epoxy. So I made the first layer, and then I just did the second layer, like I said again, just to be safe. And what this will do is actually just seal in everything you need. When you pour the epoxy, all of it will stay within the center, and you should be all set. So there you go. You see there isn't a watertight seal for this epoxy, and now you have 2 different ways to make a casting for your epoxy tables. Hope you guys enjoy, and good luck building.